got a little direct protest action in Portland. I mean, why wouldn't you? But this one caught my eye because it makes no sense whatsoever. We are at the point where we are just protesting for the sake of protesting without even really kind of figuring out, does this make any sense? And I'll tell you why. Protesters to Nike, kangaroos are not shoes. All right. Okay. Yeah. I can live with that. I can live with that statement. They are not shoes, but they can be made into shoes. And if they were a protected species, that would be one thing. But they are literally giant rodents that if you're in the outback, which I'm going to talk about, my experience in 2015 with my friend Gavin, we're in the outback. You got kangaroos running everywhere. They're not the smartest of animals. And guess what? Sometimes they run not with the traffic, but into traffic, and they're huge animals, and it can ruin your whole day, especially when you're in the outback and there is nobody around for who knows how many hours that's going to come and help you. So we've got protesters in a bunch of the Australian cities and also in Portland because a giant rodent that is plentiful throughout Australia, they're not shoes. That's literally what we're protesting. All right, let's jump on into it. Before we do, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Sean Reynolds. I own a couple of real estate companies here in Seattle, Washington, and I read news that's reasonable for reasonable people. All right. So protesters also gathered in Australian cities. It's the Portland one, which the Portland protest was the smallest of the protests. And we're going to get a little feel for what that looked like here. So I'm going to play a little bit of tape. Let me get this going.
Protesters gathered outside a Nike store in downtown Portland as part of a global day of action. Now, the Center for a Humane Economy is trying to bring attention to the use of kangaroo leather in some soccer cleats. The group organized outside of Nike stores in several Australian cities and in New York and Portland, and they say that Nike is contributing to localized extinction of kangaroos. We reached out to Nike on this issue. We've not heard back yet.
So for those of you on the audio section of that, you were looking at a bunch of protesters holding up signs, kangaroos are not shoes, and, just kind of sad looking and angry looking because they were really there to protest something. Now, if you gathered up all the clothes that those folks are wearing, guaranteed you find all kinds of animal products. Maybe not kangaroos, but United States, we only import about $60 million worth of kangaroo-related goods, which is a tiny, tiny drop in the bucket as far as the overall stuff that we import. So kangaroos are not shoes. All right. Yeah. But they're a renewable resource, and literally in Australia, they cull the herds of kangaroos, and nobody is saying that they're an endangered species. Oh, they might be endangered if we keep this up. I kind of doubt it. They run free like deer, here in the forest, in the outer areas, in more rural areas in America. They're a nuisance. They come up and they eat people's crops, and they overpopulate super quickly. They just do their thing in the wild. And now we've got people in Portland concerned that kangaroos in Australia are not shoes. Yeah. This is what we're coming to. Oh man, this, I've been looking at this podcast for a few days, and it's so ridiculous that I had to read it, right? Protesters gathered outside a Nike store in downtown Portland Saturday as part of a global day of action, not local, a global day of action in a campaign to draw attention to the use of kangaroo leather and soccer cleats. Soccer cleats. All right. Why soccer cleats? I do not know, but I'm sure there's a valid reason. I don't really care. Not into soccer cleats. Don't have a use for them. Don't have kids that are playing soccer. Maybe you do, and this is more important to you. So maybe check those tags next time you're buying a Nike product and see if they've got kangaroo leather. I don't know. Does it matter? Probably not. In 2020, the Center for the Humane Economy launched the Kangaroos Are Not Shoes campaign, their effort to get Nike to stop using kangaroo leather. All right. What is wrong with using kangaroo leather? Literally, they're culling herds in the capital, Canberra, in Australia. They're killing like 400 of them just because they got to get rid of them. I mean, that's a news story I read, that in the last couple of years. And I know there are permits. Or do you even have to get a permit to kill a kangaroo? I don't think you do, because they're kind of like rats here in the United States and in like any of our homeless encampments. They're just running all over, and it's fair game. If you got a 22, shoot one. Kangaroo is a little bit bigger. Need a little more than a 22. On Saturday, people gathered outside Nike facilities and stores in Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Canberra, Adelaide and Victoria in Australia. The Centre for Humane Economy's Natasha Dolezal said in a statement to KOIN 6 News, protesters also showed up in New York City as well as Portland. These people have nothing better to do because this doesn't make any sense. While our Portland turnout was the smallest of the cities, we know it will continue to grow as Portlanders won't tolerate this type of cruelty from a homegrown company, Dolezal said. So what's the difference between leather from a cow, leather from another animal? It happens to be a kangaroo. Is this cruelty? What am I missing here? How am I not seeing the big picture here that makes sense? And again, if there was any indication whatsoever that these animals were endangered, and again, I go back to, well, let's take a look at this. Okay, so I'm going to play a little bit of a video right now that is just some random person driving in the outback, and you're going to get an idea of what that looks like. So we're driving down the road. We're in our typically white Toyota SUV with the snorkel that goes down the side in case you go through 6 feet of water and, you got the snorkel for your air intake for your engine. But you're looking out the side window. There's kangaroos just running in the fields alongside with the traffic. Okay. And then every now and then one will dart out across the road. You're looking at, some green pastures, a little bit, but mainly flat, kind of some Australian tumbleweeds. And you've got literally kangaroos running down the sides. And this is, I experienced that in 2015. My friend Gavin and I, we went from his house in Adelaide and we went into the outback and we were out there. Out there, like there was one stretch where I don't think we saw another car for, 4 hours, something like that. It was wild. You're just so far out and there's so little humanity, but you got kangaroos everywhere. They're just everywhere. It's just not a big deal. So, and a lot of what you see are dead kangaroos in the side of the road. You see a lot of those. They get run over. They run into cars. It's like, any kind of animal that runs onto the road here in the U.S. and gets killed, right? Raccoons, cats, dogs, deer are sad ones, but you see, they're big animals. So you see a lot of big animals, kangaroos dead on the side of the road. So there's no concern for their extinction. We just don't want to think of maybe a nice animal like that, becoming our soccer cleats, I guess, ish. I'm going to turn that off for now. So yeah, but that doesn't mean that we need to protest. And it certainly doesn't mean that they're going to become extinct. We're now protesting because did we run out of everything else? Are all the other causes, are they gone? What happened? What happened? While our Portland turnout was the smallest of the cities, we know it will continue to grow as Portlanders won't tolerate this type of cruelty from a homegrown company. All right. She also said Nike is contributing to localized extinction of kangaroos and compounding the effects of climate change already wreaking havoc on wildlife in Australia. Is this even a thing? Yeah, we had some massive fires in Australia. Those were horrific. Those were truly horrible. People weren't going to Australia as a result. That was right before the Rona hit, if you remember that. Some massive wildfires. But, that stuff happens. It just does. Sometimes that stuff happens and it goes in cycles, right? So are we really going to link soccer shoes made out of kangaroos to the climate effects of already wreaking havoc on wildlife in Australia? Well, apparently that is what we're doing. But, we're not doing it very well in Portland because not that many people turned out because it's not really even a thing. The Washington Post reported in 2021 that Australia exports about $60 million worth of kangaroo products each year in the United States, according to industry figures, the second largest international market after the European Union. 2 U.S. lawmakers introduced legislation to ban the kangaroo trade in the U.S., but it has not passed. KOIN 6 News reached out to Nike for comment on this issue, but what do you think happened there? They haven't heard back. So, yeah. What do you even say to that? You kind of look at it and go, okay, what are you doing? What are you thinking? They're going down these roads of just wanting to protest stuff. And, it's part of my thought was, okay, well, kangaroos, they are like I think they're on Australian currency. It's like I think it's on their flag. It's on a bunch of their emblems. Kangaroos. Okay. Yeah, I get it. Kangaroos, they're an important animal, but they're also kind of a large rodent. I mean, if I'm mischaracterizing there, correct me, but I don't think Australians, and my mom's Australian, so I get a hall pass there, right? No idea. But I just remember being in Australia and driving for hours and hours and just seeing lots of kangaroos. And it didn't seem like they were, it's not like, it's not like some extinct animal that you never, ever see. And you're just like shocked when you see it. They're all over, and they're all over dead. I mean, in an hour span, you probably see like 15 dead. I remember one time we were really bored on this trip, and I started counting dead kangaroos on the side of the road. And I think I got to like 33 and kind of lost interest, but that was probably inside of an hour. And, they're just rotting on the side of the road as they do. So to me, if that leather gets used elsewhere, I don't know, that seems more green than going and protesting in front of your Nike store in Portland. It's just wild, right? What we'll come up with to protest. And even if you think that there is some climate change impacting something somewhere that is not right, and we need to work on it, the kangaroos aren't extinct, and they're not on the pathway to being extinct. They're like cows. We don't raise kangaroos. They run wild, and they multiply in the wild so much that Australians hunt them down, and they're allowed to kill them. So just kind of this wild thing where, okay, what can we pick up today to protest? Oh, look, Australia. Oh, what's the connection there? Australia's protesting kangaroos are not shoes. That is literally the name of the protest. Kangaroos are not shoes. All right. Lots of things are not shoes. Those aren't extinct either. But I guess that doesn't really make any sense. So yeah, this is a deal. What else are we going to see protest-wise like this? What other kind of direct action protests could we have for animals that are not, rats are not shoes either, but that one's not going to fly because we don't make shoes out of rats. What else do we have? Cows are not, no, cows are shoes. So that one doesn't count. You get where I'm coming from. This is totally absurd. And yet, down in Portland, this is a thing. And in New York, it kind of goes to show, right? 2 of the cities that are struggling with some of the greatest levels of crime in their histories are protesting kangaroos are not shoes. It's kind of like here locally in Seattle, King County Metro, the bus system, they're really supporting Ukraine. I mean, they're going all in. We're with you, Ukraine. That kind of thing drives me crazy because it doesn't really help out the Ukrainians, right? I mean, we're showing us our solidarity with Ukraine. All right, how's that really help them? Well, it makes us feel good about ourselves. That's exactly what these protesters are doing. If one kangaroo gets killed to make a shoe, that's one kangaroo too many. Okay. Yeah, that's not even really a thing. It's just not a thing. But getting back to the metro buses, they're really supporting Ukraine. They've gone all in. They're down with, Ukraine protecting themselves from Russia's invasion. That's a thing. And, but they're not really protecting their bus drivers because they're allowing people to smoke fentanyl in the buses, and bus drivers are getting sick. They're getting high. Never mind protecting the passengers who ride said buses. I think I've been trying to work out how I can do a live stream or, record some video of people that are loyal to the foil. That's a term, right? Loyal to the foil. What does that mean? That means you crush up some pills into a powdery substance and then you smoke it on a piece of tin foil. You light it with a lighter from below and heats up the chemical. And then you inhale the fumes from on top with, some kind of pipe-like device. Yeah, straw, you name it, anything you can suck fumes up with. That's what you do. So people that are loyal to the foil are basically allowed to ride King County Metro buses and do drugs that kill you, fentanyl. So yeah, we're gonna go hard with the kangaroos, but all the shootings, the violence in Portland, how about car theft? How about the catalytic converters? How about the out of control homelessness? How about the break-ins? These are real topics going on with people's everyday lives. And yet, for some reason, a small group in Portland decided, none of those are important enough for me to really do anything about. But kangaroo leather coming in from Australia to Nike for soccer cleats, I am all over that one. I am all in. I am all in on this one. Direct action. We need a direct action. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't do some peaceful protesting and, bash some windows and do a little looting, because that really shows that when you're, a peaceful protester and you're really into your cause. I think that's the level that, we've been shown that that's what you do when you're really into protesting. And I diverge, right? I mean, it's absurd. It's just flat out absurd. And this is kind of where we've gotten to. Of all the things that I podcast about in Portland, leather coming in from kangaroos, that has not been on the top of my list, but it is now because it's so ridiculous. I don't care if Nike makes shoes out of kangaroo leather. I mean, it's a leather, right? It's an animal skin. That's what we make a lot of clothes out of. A lot of clothes. You go into any major mall, you're going to have, this is not synthetic stuff that we're dealing with typically. A lot of it's straight up real leather. Shoes, I'm wearing leather shoes right now. They came off a cow. Well, leather boots. They're very comfortable, by the way. Leather, it shapes to your body and it shapes to your feet particularly. So if they're made out of the leather from a kangaroo, I don't know, is that the worst thing ever? Because it seems like it's not only a renewable source of leather, it's plentiful, and it's not on the endangered species and like many other animals. All right. That's it for me on this one. I can't tell you how ridiculous this is any more times. I got to go. All right. Thanks for being here. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now.